Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's off-season grades. My name is Rob Dauster. I have Mike LaTulip with me, and we are going to be breaking down a team that Mike has told me he has in his top tier in the Big Ten. Mike, we recorded another episode of these earlier today, and you said your top tier in the Big Ten is Purdue, Indiana, Illinois, and the Oregon Ducks making their first season from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. They lost N'Faly Dante and they lost Jermaine Cuisinart, who anybody that watched last season's NCAA tournament will know who Jermaine Cuisinart is. He had 72 points in 2 games, but they bring back Jackson Shelstad. They bring back Kwame Evans Jr., who I think are 2 guys that have a chance to have real breakout seasons. And one of my biggest X factors and biggest sleepers in college basketball this year, TJ Bamba. Why, Mike, do you have Oregon in the top tier in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had one of the more underrated off seasons as far as the Big Ten goes. I mean, this is a team that last year I just didn't think could quite get their footing. I mean, it was musical chairs in the front court with Biddle being out most of the year. Dante missed a chunk of the season, and then you had some of these younger pieces trying to find their way in Evans. They started 11 different players last year, which if you're looking for continuity, that's just
Not good.
it's going to be, yeah, it's just not it. I mean, it's going to be really hard to win consistently. 2 big losses though. I mean, you talked about it, right? Kuznard and Dante are huge losses on both ends, right? But I think they address some pretty glaring needs. I think particularly on the offensive end of the court. I mean, Jackson Shelstad um, as a guy that can kind of take that sophomore leap. We'll get into it. We'll break it down. We'll touch on each of these additions as well, but I think you need to go out and get some more shooting. You did that. I think you need to be a little bit more, have more of a plan offensively, and I think you can do that now with the personnel that they have. So I would buy Oregon as a potential top 5 team in the league. I think we just talked about that, and part of that's like I wanted to add in one of those new teams, and if I look at Oregon and UCLA. I have more question marks with what UCLA is doing. A lot of talent, but I think Oregon's got some stability at some important spots. So that's why I'm probably more high on them than most.
Yeah, to be clear, I think that Oregon's going to be really good. I think that they are in that one of the 32 to 33 teams that I have in the mix for preseason top 25. I think that I would probably have them. You have them like top 4 in the Big Ten. I'd probably have them top 6 or 7. And you're going to hear us talk a lot about how the Big Ten, once you get past, the top 2 or 3, you're looking at a situation where even including the top 2 or 3, like the top 10 teams could be separated by like 2 or 3 games here. So I think that Oregon is really, really good. I'm expecting you mentioned Jackson Shelstad, so let's just get into it because I think he's going to have a great season this year. He is one of the guys. You're not going to see him on breakout player lists because he's the way that those things work is if you average double figures, you can't be a breakout star. Well, no, he's going to end up being like a borderline. I think he has a chance to be a borderline kind of All-American player. He's from the same town as Peyton Pritchard. I don't think he's quite the same player, but they're about the same size, and I would not be surprised to see him have the same kind of impact that Peyton Pritchard did towards the end of his Oregon career.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about what kind of leap he can make, right? Like what type of leap can Jackson Shelstad make? Because I think there's no question he has all league potential. And when I say all league potential, I'm talking like first team, second team. I think he can be that good. My question for him is like, how much can you uplift the guys around you? I mean, Brandon Angel, TJ Bama, those are 2 of the better catch and shoot guys that you could get in the portal. And Ken Shelstad set the table, right? Can he make life easy on them by taking the decision making out of their hands, particularly Bamba's? I really like their makeup, and I think Shelstad, like when you watch him last year, he was a little under 3 assists per game. And I don't care to look at assist numbers when you look at facilitation. Like I want to watch and I want to see where he got his assists and the the next step for Jackson Shelstad. I think Oregon taps out their potential offensively. It's him getting that last layer of the defense. I mean, so many times last year he would come off a ball screen And part of it's you're a freshman, you're a little bit slight, and when you get that hard hedge, like his initial instinct was to just pick the ball up,
Mhm.
right? And he could still he's really good at what I would say, like kind of like a quarterback. Like he keeps his eyes downfield. He's good at those intermediate passes where you talk about like, hey, I pick it up at the 3-point line. I got a guy cutting from the corner. Kwame Evans is cutting from the corner. Can find him for a layup. I can hit the back action on a shape up for the guy that's coming from the corner up to the 3-point line. Like he can do all those things. But now the next step, if you really want to unlock these guys around you, you got to get paint touches. Like you
Mhm.
got to get 2 feet in the paint. You got to get more than one guy to commit. That's going to really, I think, make Bamba more efficient, make Angel more efficient. That's the next step for him. I don't doubt that he can be a 13, 14 a game guy. I don't doubt that at all. But like his facilitation and how he unlocks those guys around him is going to be imperative to whether or not Oregon hits the ceiling that I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, he's gonna have shot makers around him too. Like
Yeah.
Jadrian Tracy is a guy that can make shots. You mentioned Brandon Angel. He's a guy that shot like 45% from three last season at Stanford and averaged 13 points a game. And they're upperclassmen too. Nathan Biddle can stretch the floor a little bit.
Yep.
Um, they're bringing in the kid from Toledo. Raheem Moss
Moss.
can stretch the
Yeah.
floor a little bit. Like they have shooters that they can put around them. So I'm very excited to see what Shelstad can be this year. Uh, TJ Bamba to me, we'll talk about Kwame Evans in the front court here in a second, but TJ Bamba to me was so good at Washington State in the 22-23 season. And he goes to Villanova last year. And I think a lot of people, myself included, saw what he could be playing in what you would expect a Villanova system to look like and think that he would thrive. And the Kyle Neptune's Villanova is not what Jay Wright's Villanova was. And he was kind of limited. He didn't get as many shots. He didn't get as many attempts. He didn't have as much of a usage rate. And I think that going back to be back on the West Coast, going back and playing in the Big Ten, getting to a coach that I think will be better at being able to put him into situations like when you go from Kyle Smith to Kyle Neptune as a coach, it's a pretty big step down. I think you're taking a big step back up to Dana Altman. TJ Bamba to me is an all conference caliber talent when
Mhm.
it comes to what he is as a player. And now that he is a redshirt senior, he averaged 16 points a game 2 years ago in the Pac-12, playing for a Kyle Smith team that doesn't play fast, that didn't have a lot of options around him. Like this dude can go, and I think that backcourt of Shelstad and Bamba is, uh, I would make the argument one of the most underrated in the Big Ten, and I'm excited to see what Altman's going to be able to do with them.
I'm really excited to see what Altman does with them and does with Bamba in particular. Because you look at when he was at Washington State and when he was at Villanova. You touched on it, like the volume wasn't there
Mm-hmm.
at Villanova. And part of that was he came off a lot less ball screens. And frankly, like he had the ball in his hands less at Villanova than he did at Washington State. And although the volume went down last year, in certain areas he was a more efficient player with less volume. And part of that, again, like they lowered the rate at which he came off of ball screens. He's had one college season with a positive assist to turnover ratio. And for guys that can sit there and say like, man, I want to come off a ton of ball screens, that's not the best formula for it, right? If you've shown and proven over the course of your career an inability to really take care of the ball, like at least being at like 1-to-1 for a guy like TJ Bamba would be good, but he's only done that once. So I think simplification should be the name of the game for Bamba. Like I think Shelstad will take the lion's share of the facilitation. I think Moss will help in that area too. Just because I think he's a little bit more steady than Bamba, but I think all this helps Bamba. I mean, the more to
Mm-hmm.
me, the more catch and shoot, straight line drive opportunities he gets, the better. Like when you look at his Villanova years, at his Washington State years, like when TJ Bamba gets into trouble is when he exceeds 4 to 5 dribbles. Like that's when the turnovers happen. That's when the poor shot selection happens. But when TJ Bamba's decisive and it's either catch and shoot or hey, I got a mismatch or a guy that I can deck straight line drive, that's when he starts to be more efficient. That's when you start to see more of those like 18 to 22 point scoring outputs because then he can get to the line more. Like it all bakes in for TJ Bamba, but he was 40% catch and shoot last year for Villanova, I think, and he's done that his whole career. So I don't expect that to be any different with Oregon. It's a great pickup. I think he's one of the more unheralded guys in the portal. Because when you
Yeah.
look at numbers, right, that's what everybody does in the offseason. It's 10 points a game, but just you look at his full body of work. This is a really good player and a guy that I think is that Dana Altman's going to be able to move around a little bit too. I can see him off ball actions and kind of get into that inside foot, 3-point attempts, again, straight line drives, creating advantages. All that's on the table for TJ Bamba.
Yeah, I think if you look at kind of the spread that the spread offense that Dana Altman runs, I think it's um a lot of that is putting guys in a situation where it's like, all right, we're going to create a situation where you have that advantage and you just got to catch the ball and go. And I think TJ Bamba, um, that's when he's at his best, right? When you just say, here's the ball, there's the basket, make those things go together, right? And I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to be able to do that. Let's get to the front court. Jadrian Tracy, he's more of like a wing, but you got Brandon Angel, you got Nathan Biddle, you got Kwame Evans, you got Supreme Cook, who is maybe the best name in the history of college basketball right there. What do you make of this core and this group and this crop of guys that Altman has at his disposal?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Brandon Angel. I mean, it's no secret. The people that know me know that he's one of my favorite players in the portal. Um, 13 a game last year at Stanford. He had 21 against Oregon last year, so I'm sure
Mhm.
Dana Altman had that written down. I was like, hey, if this guy hits the portal, we got to go after him. But he can put it on
That's
the
one of
deck.
those ones in the handshake line. He was like, "Hey, just so you know, this is what
Yeah,
Nike's giving me for NIL. Just put it in the back of your mind."
yeah. Phil Knight's got us covered over here. No, but like can put it on the deck, straight line drive, uses his strength, his size. He finishes efficiently around the rim. He was 70% around the rim last year, 62% from two. And again, he's one of my favorite players that was available in the portal because he can be additive to any team in any situation. Because like these guys that
We
play
can
the
do
floor,
this.
that can shoot it, catch and shoot, can space the floor, have length, aren't a net negative defensively. Like you can drop those guys. I mean, look at like Brady Manick, right? I mean, Brady Manick could have gone and really made an impact for anybody because of those things he can do. And I don't think Brandon Angel is Brady Manick, but I do look at the fact that for his career, he's been right around 40% from three.
Mhm.
And if I'm Dana Altman, I'm looking at him like, dude, if you have a sliver of daylight, shoot the goddamn ball. Because 2.5 3-point attempts. I mean, I just look like you just look at numbers, man. Like you're on around 40% for your career. You're under 40, right under 45% from three last year. We need you to shoot more, right? I would like to see Brandon Angel around that like 4 to 5 3-point attempt per game number. He's too good of a shooter. And I think if he does that, and if he becomes and is consistent at being the threat that he is from out there, that's only going to help Shelstad, right? That's only going to help Bombo and Moss. Like he's a really big X factor for this team because of those reasons that I mentioned, right? You can drop in on any team in the country and you're not trying to figure out how to incorporate Brandon Angel. He just knows how to hoop.
Mhm. Nathan Biddle was productive. He was kind of banged up. He's been kind of banged up for 2 years now. Kwame Evans had some big breakout games last season as a freshman. The consistency wasn't quite there, but you could see it in flashes. I think those two guys, you need a level of consistency, right? Like if you can get 30 minutes from Nathan Biddle at the level of production he had last year, like he is a first team All American. Right? He averaged 10 points and 5 rebounds in 17 minutes. If he's playing 34 minutes a game, 20 and 10, right? Like that's first team All American level, shooting 50% from the floor and 33% from three. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying like he's a super productive dude when he is actually on the court.
No, he is. And I think what's going to actually help Biddle if he plays 35 minutes a game, I don't know how great that is for Oregon because I do think there's areas that I think Supreme Cook can help them. I mean, last year they were middle of the pack nationally, just getting more back on the offensive glass. And if you look at Supreme Cook, right, like that dude was born to to eat glass and to crash the offensive glass. Like that dude had 14 games last year with over 5 offensive rebounds for Georgetown. I mean, that's just it's just insane. He had a game of 9.
That's a
Like
lot, man. It's a
it
lot of
is,
rebounds.
and you look at Angel and Bamba and Shell, like these guys that can shoot it, getting more opportunities to like that's only going to make your offense more efficient. So I like Cook in that regard. But you talk about Biddle, I think he moves well. I don't think you're going to have the rim protection necessarily that Dante had. And I think he's going to have to be really solid down there, just altering shots. I don't know how many of them he's going to block, but that also falls on the guards too. I mean, you saw last year, Kwame Evans was chest to chest with Tristan da Silva at 40 feet because in his mind he's like, shit, if you go by me, we got Dante sitting down there to beat that shot, and you don't have that luxury anymore. So that front court has to be so sound as well as the backcourt defensively, but particularly protecting the rim, altering shots. I think Evans can play a big role in that department. I think Biddle can play a big role in that department. I really like their pieces, and I think that front court, like I talked about at the beginning, is going to be much less of a musical chairs situation. I think it's pretty clear. You got Biddle, you got Cook, you got Evans, and those guys should really take the lion's share of the and Angel, right? And those guys at the 4-5, like that should just be a revolving door of getting those guys in there.
Yeah, and I think the thing I like about Oregon the most is, we talked about how good Shelstad could be. We talked about how good TJ Bamba can be. We just talked about the depth and the talent and the versatility of their front court. We haven't even gotten to, Keyshawn Bartholomew. We haven't even gotten to Mookie Cook, who was a highly regarded freshman coming in last season. We haven't talked about Raheem Moss, who averaged 16 a game for a good Toledo team in the MAC last year, right? We haven't even got to Des Lindsey or Jamari Phillips, or we mentioned Jadrian Tracy, but we haven't really talked about him all that much. Like there's depth, there's versatility, there's legitimately on this roster like 11 guys I think that could give you rotation minutes at Oregon next season. And I think the most difficult thing is going to be trimming that down and making sure you don't have people that are upset in that locker room. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense because you and I know
Mm-hmm.
this is my favorite thing, right? Depth. Everybody talks about in the off season, man, they can go 12 deep, 11 deep. It's going to be 8 or 9. It always is. It just is. Like that's coaches don't want to manage 12 guys. That's why Musselman, when he would build his teams out at Nevada early on at our, it was, we got 8 guys. Like when guys would actually redshirt, Musselman was like, we got 8 guys that play. We got 3 guys that are walk-ons and we got 3 guys that are redshirting. Because I don't want to, the guys that sink your locker room most times are the 9th and 10th guy, 11th guy. Those are the guys. It's not the guy that's ball hogging, taking all the shot. Like that is why it's so important to level set expectations. If you're Dana Altman, I think part of that is done in the off season. And then part of that is like setting the expectation in the off season. And as we roll into fall workouts of like, hey, here's what I got in mind. And either you're going to hit that level or you're not. And the guys that do are going to play and the guys that don't aren't. And like the good teammates understand that and they're ready for when their moment comes. The bad teammates don't. And so it's a theme, right? With a lot in the portal era in general, right? How quickly can you mesh? How quickly can you gel? And you rattle off the list of guys on this team that can make it. I mean, Raheem Moss, to me, like after Jackson Shelstad, I think Raheem Moss is more of a steady ball handler than Bamba.
No, he
So
definitely is. He definitely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So how do you now? Is there an issue for TJ Bamba, right? Because it's like, hey, I went to Nova, I had a little less volume. Now I'm thinking I'm going to get more, right? Like, how do you manage all that? And I think they put themselves in a position. I'd rather be in the position of like, hey, we have the depth, we'll figure it out, than like, hey, I'm trying to recruit like only a few guys so that we make it easier for ourselves on the back end. Like, just get good guys, get guys that can play. The rest will figure itself out. And I think Oregon's put themselves in a good position.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Yeah, I think that what you're going to end up seeing when everything kind of shakes out is that the four big guys that you mentioned are going to play the lion's share of the minutes. And then in the backcourt, it's going to be Shelstad, Bamba, Jadrian Tracy, Raheem Moss, and then someone is going to step up from that, whether it's Bartholomew, Mookie Cook, the freshman, the JUCO kid they got coming in. You're going to have another guy step up in there and be another one of those rotation guys. But I think that that's going to kind of be how it shakes out. Now, whether that's Bamba starting, whether that's Tracy starting over Raheem Moss, like that's stuff that's going to get figured out when you get into these fall practices in September and October and kind of works its way through that and the lineups that Altman likes. But there's options, there's versatility, and there's talent there. And if I'm a coach, tell me if you think this is wrong. I'd rather have 11 guys where I have to kind of figure out someone that I need to cut away from than have a roster with 11 guys where I only trust like 6 or 7 of them. And I got to give minutes to a dude where it's like, all right, checking this guy in. Please don't lose us this game in the next 3 minutes that you're out there.
Totally. I mean, yeah, I mean, you would much rather work from that angle than the other angle where it's like, hey, we gotta, because this isn't the NBA where it's like, hey, we got the trade deadline, we got free agency, we got buyout candidates. Like, you just don't have that. You don't have that in college basketball. You can't. It's really hard to go and just go get somebody mid-season and have them come in and make it like it doesn't happen. So yeah, no, I completely agree. I think you'd much rather work from that angle than the other, and that's why I think they're in a good position.
Yeah. So X factor for this team, to me, it's CJ Bamba for all the reasons that we already mentioned. But I think that when Altman's at his best, he is a guy where when things kind of get clogged up, he can give the ball to and say, go get us 25 tonight. And I think that Bamba is the guy that you can look at and say, okay, we need 25 tonight. Go get us 25 tonight. I don't think it'll be every night, but we saw it from Jermaine Cuisinart in the NCAA tournament. We've seen it from guys like
Dorsey was a little bit like that.
Tyler Dorsey, Joe Young back in the day. Yep. That's a little bit of a throwback, but I think that TJ Bamba is the guy that can kind of be
Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks was like that too.
Yes, he was. That Final Four team was so much fun, man. They had Jordan Bell at the 5, like a 6'5", 48-inch vertical dude running small ball 5 out there. I remember the days when we all thought that Jordan Bell was going to be the next Draymond Green. You thought it too. Don't
ended
lie,
up with the Warriors.
Yeah, right.
Won a title.
Mike, you thought it too. All right. Expectations for this group. You said that they're top 4 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think. Look, with the pieces that they have, I think the pieces make sense. I think we are going to get a leap from Jackson Shelstad. Like everything that we just broke down, I'd have a hard time saying, yeah, this is like a middle of the pack team. With how many question marks there are across the Big Ten, all the things we just talked about, it's pretty easy for me with Oregon to put them in that like top 5 in the Big Ten preseason. Now with most of these teams, like you still need things to happen, right? You need guys to adjust to their role. You need Shelstad to take that leap. You need Angel to remain efficient behind the arc. You need Moss to be okay with not having the ball in his hands as much as he did at Toledo. Like you need Biddle to be the same Biddle he was pre-injury. Like you do need things to happen. Kwame Evans, like what type of sophomore leap does he take? I mean, all that needs to happen, but it's the same for a lot of other teams in the Big Ten as well. So my expectations for them, this is a tournament team. There's no doubt. And Dana Altman's shown if he can get to the tournament, he's going to win in the tournament.
Yes.
I mean, he's been there 8 times at Oregon. He's won a game every single time he's gone. So, and it doesn't matter the seeding either. But I think this is the year where when they do win an NCAA tournament game, it's not going to be from the 11 seed. Like I think this is a team that's going to be more that can be on that like 5 to 8 line, 5 to 7 line. I think they have that type of ceiling, if not higher, if things really shake out the way they want to.
Yeah, I still think that they're kind of. I probably have them outside the top 25 looking in the preseason. I still think they're like closer to 6 and 7 in the Big Ten than I would have them top 4 right now. But I also think that there is partly because of Altman, partly because of what their backcourt is. You know, frankly, I think that the only point guard in the Big Ten that I would take over take over Jackson Shelstad right now is Braden Smith. I don't think there's anyone else in the conference that I would want over Shelstad. So I think that they have as much tournament upside as it. Like if you told me that they made the Elite Eight from a 7 seed this year, like yeah, obviously that's what Dana Altman does. He goes on these runs. Off-season grades, what do you got?
I went B plus. I went B plus for him. I think they definitely didn't replace the defensive impact of Dante around the rim, which again, like I talked about, it's going to force Shelstad, Bamba, Moss. They got to be really good on the ball defensively. But I think offensively, you're going to have a little bit more flow with the absence of Dante. I just think, it's hard with guys like Dante that aren't particularly skilled offensive players, like really skilled offensive players, to say, hey, we're going to throw it into you frequently, because they did last year. And I thought like there were times where they didn't really have like a true offensive identity, which I think was unique for Dana Altman. But now I think you can go to more spread ball screen. You can rely on Shelstad to make those reads. I talked about getting the last layer of the defense, being able to set Brandon Angel up, to set TJ Bamba up for those catch and shoot looks, those straight line drives. Moss can be a secondary ball handler. Supreme Cook is going to help out in the offensive glass, where just it was an area you were just kind of averaging last year, and you can't tap out offensively if you don't get more back on the glass. So I think Oregon did enough to be in that conversation, to be in that kind of top 5 in the Big Ten conversation. But again, we've talked about it. A lot's going to be predicated on how quickly this group gels, and a lot's going to be predicated on what type of leap we see from Jackson Shelstad. So all that to say, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited about Oregon. It's weird to be talking about Oregon as like a Big Ten preview, but this is shoot, man, this is the world we're living in now.
Oregon going on the road to UCLA is one of the most important Big Ten games of the college basketball season. Who had that in your predictions? I had the same thing, B plus. If their Hail Mary for Dante would have worked out, I probably would have had it in the A/A plus range, but you kind of hit the nail on the head on that, so I don't need to repeat it. Mike, it's always a pleasure, man. Appreciate you being here. We have 45 of these off-season grades up in the Field of 68 YouTube channel and on the Field of 68 podcast feed. So make sure to go check those out. We are recording this on September 6th, which means we are only 60 days away from the first day of the college basketball season and the Field of 68 opening day showcase. First Division I college basketball game of the 24-25 season right here on the Field of 68 YouTube channel. Mike LaTulip, appreciate you, man.